Who-Dats, welcome to the podcast you've been waiting for. Great perspective and exclusive interviews.
It's a hard job for those guys because it's happening fast.
The kind of Saints insight and fun commentary you won't get anywhere else.
We've got plenty of technology to speed things up.
It's time to kick off your Been There, Done That Saints podcast, where we hand it off to our host, Mike Nabors, and Super Bowl winning linebacker, Scott Shanle.
Proud of these guys.
Here's my prediction, Shanle, okay? I don't think the market is that great for Jameis Winston. Now, maybe he'll get a starting job in the next couple of days. But how about Jameis Winston as your backup quarterback in New Orleans if that market really dries up? Because they got to have a backup for Taysom to be third. You know?
Mike, you took the words out of my mouth. And I have been critical of Jameis. We make fun of the 30 for 30. We've talked about all those things. But are you kidding me? If you could get a former number one overall pick who has tons of games in his career as your backup quarterback, I think a lot of teams would want that. Having Jameis Winston sit in a room with Drew Brees, Sean Payton, learning how to take care of the football, because Sean Payton talks about every single second of the day. I think that would be my hope, is that Jameis Winston ends up being the backup quarterback.
And that is why you need to listen to our Been There, Done That podcast. Welcome back, everyone. I am Mike Nabors, and that was on March 19th, an exchange between myself and I'm going to bring in my partner, Scott Shanle. We also have producer Justin Thomas. Shanle, we're not right about everything, even though we're close, but we have been on this Jameis Winston story for a long, long time about why he should be the backup quarterback for the Saints.
Yeah, it ended up being perfect because I know there's a lot of people. Who Dat Nation's kind of fragmented right now over this signing. They see some of the stupid things that Jameis has done in the past. They don't want to equate that with their Saints. But when you look at it from winning football games, he's going to be one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL, and he'll have a chance to be starting a quarterback again in the NFL. Former number one overall pick, 26 years old. You're in the business of collecting as many good football players as you can collect. And you know what? You took Jameis away from somebody else in the NFL who you may have to end up playing later on down the road. So I think it's a good signing. Even though the Who Dat Nation is a little bit fragmented on it, I like the signing because of his talent.
Justin, I'm going to bring you in. And the stat that I love seeing over the weekend when Jameis Winston was signed, that Jameis Winston has completed 10 passes to the New Orleans Saints. Taysom Hill only 7. So Jameis has him beat already in that regard. And Justin, you brought down some great sound from Jameis Winston. His first career win was against the Saints in the Superdome his rookie year back in 2015. This is good stuff from Brees, isn't it? About Brees.
No, it is. It's interesting because, like you said, his first career game, he's praising Brees. Obviously, you can tell from the get-go how much of a fan he is. And now he has an opportunity to play underneath him, learn from him and Sean Payton. It's just kind of interesting how things evolve over time.
And here's Jameis Winston on Drew Brees after his first career win against the Saints back in 2015.
I was amazed because we played against Drew Brees. You know, he's one of the best. And I was so pumped up on that last drive. I was like, we playing against Drew Brees. They like, Jameis, get back off the side. I'm like, we playing against Drew Brees. This guy is amazing. Anything can happen.
Now, I've covered Jameis Winston when he was at Florida State. I live in Tampa. I cover the Saints and the Bucs. I've been around him a lot. When you're around him, you want to like him. You don't want to believe all the other stuff, which is kind of dangerous sometimes because it makes you believe, you really don't know somebody, which we don't. We don't know these athletes. But here's the thing. Years later, he picked that fight with Marshawn Lattimore, and you've been around the NFL for a long time. Shanle, of course, you played in the league for a long time. When an athlete has a problem with a player and then he becomes his teammate, how's that going to work out with Jameis Winston and Lattimore now?
Yeah, I was thinking about that yesterday. And the one thing about the NFL is when you're playing inside the white lines, there's a lot of rivalries that develop, personal, team-related, fan-related. But when you get somebody in your locker room and you're all striving for the same goal and you're all striving to win a championship with the same team, that's the beautiful thing about an NFL locker room is there's a lot of divisive things in life. But when you become a teammate, more often than not, you cast that aside because you're all trying to strive for one thing, and that's to lift the Lombardi at the end of the season. So I really think that Marshawn and Jameis are going to get together. Guys are going to give them both crap about it, and they're going to bro hug it out the first day. They're going to put it past them, and they're all on the same team now. And that's one of the special things that I miss about an NFL locker room.
That was the game where he did the eating the W's thing before the game. Are there going to be any eating the W's remarks when Jameis comes in the locker room at all?
I think guys will rib him about it, and it seems like Jameis has probably had it done to him in Tampa Bay. So I'm sure guys at the Saints will break the ice and and give him some crap about it. But I'm thinking maybe the Saints, do you think in the contract language it said no pregame speeches, no hype speeches from Jameis in the contract language?
Yeah, if Drew gets hurt, you will remain on the sidelines and we'll let Demario Davis do the who dat chant. Can you imagine Jameis trying to do eat the W's, the Breeze who dat chant? That would just be a whole cluster altogether right there. But here's the silver lining, Shanle. Jameis Winston did not do this for the Bucs. He got the LASIK surgery just for the Saints, baby. How about that?
That's the variable in this whole thing is nobody has seen Jameis Winston with great eyesight. Who knows what he's been seeing since Florida State? I mean, everybody sees the meme of him wincing and glancing over at the sideline, the coach standing 10 yards away, and he can't even see the hand signals. Maybe this is the first round number one overall pick, Jameis Winston, that we all expected with good eyesight.
Could you see a Zoom with Sean Payton and Winston? Jameis, how many fingers? How many, buddy?
That was the physical. That was the test. He passed.
All right. Well, you and I have debated Taysom Hill for a long time. I still think he's got a chance to be the starter. I've done a lot of radio lately since this Jameis Winston development. And my answer to people is this. There's a narrative around the country that they're going to fight it out for the backup job. That's not going to be the case. Jameis Winston is going to be like Bridgewater. He'll be the guy if Drew Brees gets hurt, and he'll also be the guy to be the bridge, no pun intended, to let Taysom be Taysom. This whole thought of them battling it out for the backup job is ridiculous. Am I right, Scott Shanle?
Well, I think you're right, but I also think that they're going to battle in preseason camp, assuming we have a normal preseason.
Yeah.
And, even if Taysom is the number 2, they can't put him at number 2 because of what he brings. You have to keep him on the field. So let's just play out this scenario where Drew hits his thumb again. He misses a couple weeks. If Taysom is better than Jameis, I think Sean Payton's going to give Taysom Hill a chance this time around to be the backup quarterback. You've heard him talk about him, and I'm sure Taysom didn't like the fact that the Saints drafted the quarterback. Then they went and signed Jameis, so the Saints rewarded him with a new contract. But I think this time around, if something happens to Drew and Taysom still does not come in as the backup quarterback, I think that's all you need to know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the whole mindset of Taysom, I mean, we don't know the conversations that have taken place behind the scenes with Sean Payton and Taysom, but you still maintain that you see him as a Swiss Army knife. You don't see him as the heir apparent, do you?
No, I don't think that he is a franchise quarterback in the NFL. I think he is an outstanding football player, one of the best all-around football players I've seen. And the Saints rewarded him. They gave him a lot of money to either be the backup quarterback, the future quarterback, who knows. But it's a good deal for what he brings to the team. Everybody loves him. He's great in the locker room. He has been a great teammate. So you reward guys like that. But I just don't see him. At his age, when he's done with his 2-year deal, he's going to be 32, maybe going on 33. There's not a whole lot of time to put your franchise in a guy who's going to be that age. And I just don't see the skill set transferring, dropping back, throwing 30 to 40 times a game, and seeing that pinpoint accuracy you need in that offense.
Yeah, he turns 30 in the month of August, so he's not getting any younger. Jameis Winston, on the other hand, is 26, right around Teddy Bridgewater's age. Can Sean Payton fix Jameis Winston, Shanle?
If anybody can do it, it's Sean Payton. And I know we both said, and a lot of people said last year, if Bruce Arians can't fix Jameis Winston, then it's hopeless. Then nobody can. But I saw an interesting stat the other day that Carson Palmer's first year and Andrew Luck's first year, they were at the top of the league in turnovers. So I think that tells you maybe it's Bruce Arians' offense is a little too aggressive, not enough pass protection, too many deep, aggressive throws. If Sean Payton can't fix Jameis Winston, then nobody can. Look what Teddy Bridgewater became his best version of himself under Coach Payton and learning from Drew Brees. So the talent is there. He's a former number 1 overall pick for a reason. He's got a cannon arm, and yes, he turns the ball over too much. He threw 30 interceptions, but there's also not a whole lot of guys that have thrown for over 5,000 yards in the NFL. So if you can fix that turnover part of his game, he can be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
You mentioned Payton and Arians. I find this interesting, and no disrespect to Bruce Arians. He is the quarterback whisperer, but man, he's worked with like number 1 overall picks and guys like Andrew Luck and guys like Roethlisberger and Peyton Manning, and we'll go on and on and on, Carson Palmer. And my thing with that is Sean Payton has been more of an innovator, in my opinion, because Drew Brees is the future Hall of Famer. Drew Brees is one of the best quarterbacks ever, but a large part of that is because he worked with Sean Payton. Everybody talks about if he would have gone to Miami, I don't know if Drew Brees' story would have been the same working with Nick Saban. Sean Payton's a big part of that. Sean Payton also helped Teddy Bridgewater, and Sean Payton has created the Taysom Hills of the world, where it cracks me up watching the draft. Oh, this guy could be the next Taysom Hill. You got to give Sean Payton credit for that. So that's why I think he may have a different insight to Jameis Winston than maybe a Bruce Arians, because he's been a different kind of innovator, Shanle.
No question. And I threw it out there, and we threw it out there on this podcast about signing Jameis Winston, and I caught some flack from Saints fans. No, we don't need Jameis. He turns the ball over too much, this and that. He's a knucklehead. But that's my faith in Sean Payton. I think Sean can bring most guys into that locker room. It's a great locker room. It's a good group of guys. And he is such an innovator, like you said, that he is going to play to somebody's strengths. We've seen Jameis Winston throw for over 5,000 yards. He obviously has strengths. Now you have to teach him about timing. You have to teach him about reads. You have to teach him about audibles, pre-snap, what you're looking for. And I really believe Jameis Winston is going to learn more in 1 year sitting with Drew and Sean than he's learned in his NFL career. And that's just a testament to those two guys.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're going to get to Sean Payton in the NFL draft and break that down. And I'm going to have a great question about the quarterback situation for the Saints and more likely later on. That's why you have to listen to our whole podcast, folks. But my last question on Jameis. Jameis, if he ever gets to play, and let's just say something, God forbid, happens to Drew Brees, when you're a player like that who's been in the league for 5 years, and you're on a new team and you've had some reps with them in practice and you've been around training camp if there is one, he gets out of the huddle, Shanle. He's like, oh, my goodness, this offensive line's awesome. Oh, my God, I got a running game. He always had weapons in Tampa in terms of wide receivers and tight ends. But when you have the whole package, that's got to help him too.
No question. And the thing about being in Tampa Bay, when you're the number one overall pick, everybody says, here you go, Jameis. Lead us, carry us, do everything every single week and help us win. And then when he turns the ball over, he gets all the blame. I think with the Saints, he's been removed from his team that drafted him. Now he's trying to resurrect his career because he hasn't been reclaimed by his original team. There's much less pressure on him. He's the former number one overall pick on a new team. And I think that can play to his advantage. He doesn't have to be the savior for a franchise anymore like he was looked at in Tampa Bay.
Man, he's been through so much. I know a lot of it's self-inflicted in his 26 years of his life. But here's my last thing, last thing on Jameis Winston. If he doesn't play this year, it's kind of like Tua in Miami. I think it's good for guys to sit out. You saw with Mahomes in Kansas City with Alex Smith, but it's different with Jameis for all the reasons you just said about the pressure that he was under in Tampa, being the number one overall pick, staying in a state where, frankly, you have a lot of Gator fans who couldn't stand it, a lot of Florida State fans who couldn't stand it because he caused so much grief in terms of the off-the-field stuff with the Seminoles. If he took a year away where he could just learn, like a Teddy Bridgewater in his first season in New Orleans, kind of take a deep breath, boy, I think that would mean the world to Jameis Winston's career.
Yes, and it was an ideal landing spot for him. I really, when I talked about being a backup, it was more of a hopeful thing. Like, I want the Saints to collect as many good football players as they can because it means less for the rest of the league. But I was really surprised that the Chargers, the Jaguars, the Patriots, teams that they're not set on quarterback. I was really surprised one of those teams didn't offer Jameis a chance to come in and probably be their starting quarterback. And so I think it's a huge benefit for the Saints. But the one thing is you're right, is Jameis now gets a chance to relax, exhale. And I think it says a lot about, there's not a whole lot of number one overall picks. He probably could have went a lot of other places. I think it says a lot about him that he's willing to grow as a football player and he's willing to be patient and take time and learn. And there's not a whole lot of guys that go number one overall that are willing to be patient and basically take a year off to learn.
I don't know where they're going to go, and I agree with you, but Jameis Winston, Jarrett Stidham in New England, now who am I to second guess the hoodie? He's the best coach in NFL history. But in the back of my mind, I see Andy Dalton going to New England, and I see Cam Newton maybe going to Jacksonville, Shanle. How about that?
Wow. Yeah, Jacksonville, the more I thought about it, I was really thinking that would be the best spot for Jameis to end up because Gardner Minshew, he had a good year last year and they got rid of Foles. But as a Jaguars fan and as a front office, are you really going to put all your eggs in that basket? I thought they would have brought Jameis Winston in to compete with Minshew. And now you have two quarterbacks who can give you a chance to win on Sunday. So I don't know. And you're right. Belichick, sometimes I think Belichick, it almost feels like he's trying to say to the NFL and to say to everybody else, look at this. I don't need this, or I don't need a quarterback, and I'll still win. And the whole Belichick-Brady credit thing is going to be interesting this fall because there's going to be a weekly tab counter based on records, I'm sure.
Yeah, and the whole Gronk thing is great for selling jerseys with the Bucks, but this just in, you don't need a tight end Tampa Bay. You need offensive linemen, and you need a running game. So we'll see how that plays out with the Buccos. All right, let's go to the NFL draft. A lot of moving parts for the New Orleans Saints, but one thing that kind of surprised me, Shanle, I never played the game, as you know. I was a hell of a wide receiver in flag football in middle school, but after that, my career kind of went downhill. But Daniel Jeremiah breaking down the draft kind of brought up something interesting, didn't he, Justin?
When you're talking about interior guys, they get to play with Nabors.
I mean, I don't know where that came from, Shanle, but that just kind of popped out of nowhere. I don't know if he had a Goodell moment or what was going on with Daniel Jeremiah. But let's go on to the New Orleans Saints. And when talking about this team, in Ireland, I trust. Jeff Ireland, since he's been in New Orleans, has had unbelievable drafts. We go back to 2017. And, of course, not having a first pick last year gets Eric McCoy. There's tons and tons of examples with Jeff Ireland. But I was surprised because Patrick Queen was on the board, and I like that player. I don't scout like Jeff Ireland, but they picked Cesar Ruiz. Second year in a row, they pick a center. But when you really break it down, it makes a lot of sense because he can play center and guard, and McCoy can do the same. Here's what Sean Payton had to say about his first pick in the draft, Cesar Ruiz, the center out of Michigan.
It was an area we identified, an interior offensive lineman. Caesar's someone that we felt was so consistent. You could pull out any game tape you wanted to. Week 1, week 2, week 3, go back a year ago. You see his footwork. He's got exceptional power. He's got a real good, strong punch.
You got to have the strong punch, Shanle. That's Sean Payton talking to Trey Wingo on ESPN. What was your take, being a former linebacker, not going with Patrick Queen, going with the offensive lineman when linebacker was a big need?
Yeah, I was surprised a little bit, but like you said, the Saints' track record has been so good the past few years that I didn't question it. I thought, hey, this offensive line a couple years ago was the best in the NFL. If you want to get younger, the one thing I originally thought right away when I saw who they drafted was Eric McCoy played great last year as a rookie. How does that affect him? Who's going to play center? Who's going to move to guard? But if Larry Warford is a homeowner in New Orleans, you might want to look at renting because I think the clock's ticking for him. And the Saints' offensive line has gotten a lot younger, and you put him in, you put Eric McCoy, then you re-sign Andres Pete. You have Ramczyk, who's probably going to sign a nice deal at tackle. And then if Armstead can stay healthy, that is a really good offensive line. Armstead's still plenty young. And there's one thing, you can't win week in, week out. You can't win championships if you don't have the guys in the trenches. And the old Bill Parcells adage is you always take big, talented guys first. Small, fast guys, those guys grow on trees when it comes to the draft. It is hard to find really good big men.
Yeah, that's true. And here's another thing. This is what good teams do. They prepare for losses. I mean, you look at the safety position. I know they got Malcolm Jenkins. They brought him in here. But, they saw that Von Bell, they probably couldn't afford him. So they draft a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, knowing that they're going to prepare a guy. And that's what they're doing with the offensive line. You see the good teams do that. The Saints, the Patriots, the Ravens always draft well. The bad teams, like the Bucs and the Browns and the Bengals, they don't prepare that way, Shanle.
Well, I think a lot of these organizations, and Parcells and Payton always say it too, there's 8 to 10 functional organizations in the NFL year in and year out. The other ones are just trying to get out of their own way and stumbling over themselves. The organizations that are established, they have great ownership who believe in their coaches, and you can start to build. You can start to lay that foundation. These other teams are starting over every single year. It feels like they're firing coaches. They're bringing in different players. They don't have franchise quarterbacks, number one, first and foremost. So a lot of these organizations, they don't have the foundation to continue to build for the future because they're trying to start over every single year, and the Saints are in a good position when you look at that reality.
Yeah, and we go to the second day of the draft, and I wasn't sure what the Saints were going to do, but I love all these press conferences because you can't believe all of them, but some you can. That this is the guy we targeted. Well, they go with linebacker Zach Bond out of Wisconsin, a guy who many had as a first rounder until he had some injury concerns. But the Saints said they eyed him going into the offseason, going into the draft process. Here's what Sean Payton had to say about his second round pick, Zach Bond.
A real good high makeup player. There's some versatility with this player that is a little unique. We feel like linebacker is going to be his position. He can be a designated pass rusher, someone that can help you on third down and be involved in some of your pressures.
What do you think of the linebacker, former linebacker?
Yeah, I like the pick. I saw him play a lot because obviously Nebraska's in the Big Ten, so I watch Nebraska and Wisconsin play every year, and he made some nice plays. His versatility, he's very athletic. I see him starting off as an edge guy, a Sam linebacker playing against the tight end, but he has versatility. And if you look at Dennis Allen's defense, if you got three really good linebackers, he's going to go with three down linemen and three linebackers. If you have two good linebackers, he's going to go with four down linemen and two nickel linebackers. So his athletic ability gives Dennis Allen, the Saints defense coordinator, flexibility, and that's what his defense is built on. So I really like the pick, mainly because of the value. They took him mid-round, and he had the first-round grade. He was one of the higher-rated outside linebackers who probably could have went late first. So when you look at the value of it, it was a no-brainer.
Because the team loses A.J. Klein. Alex Anzalone is a great player, but he can't stay healthy. And you have Demario Davis coming back. Kiko Alonso got hurt at the end of last year. If this core can stay healthy, to me, it's almost a weakness turns into a strength in a lot of ways.
Yes, no question. And Alex is an extremely talented player, and the injury bug has gotten him. But the NFL has really become a nickel linebacker league as far as, can you pass rush? Can you drop into coverage? Are you a true three-down linebacker? To me, Alex Anzalone and Demario Davis, when they're on the field together in nickel situation, which is basically base defense now, I don't think there's two better three-down linebackers in the NFL. Now you throw this kid into the mix who can probably stay on the field and will be viewed as a three-down linebacker. Gives the Saints tremendous versatility when you talk about covering the passing offense in the NFL these days.
See, no other podcast is going to have a breakdown like that about the Saints defense. Scott Shanle, very well done. I'm serious. I mean, we called Jameis. We got the Shanle breakdown linebacker. You got to listen to us, folks. Spread the word. All right, here's the wild card in this draft. And we talk about preparing, teams prepare for maybe losing guys. Not that they're going to lose Taysom Hill, but they get Tommy Stevens, this Taysom Hill kind of athletic quarterback. Was at Mississippi State, transferred to Penn State. They move up to get him, and everybody's saying Taysom 2.0. Why on earth would Sean Payton do this, Shanle?
Again, their board must have came down to they had him rated pretty high, and he showed up in the 7th round. And I know they traded away a lot of future picks, but this was definitely a value pick where they really liked the player, and they couldn't believe he was still there in the 7th round. Didn't want to get into a bidding war for undrafted free agents, but they must have saw something on tape. The reason I don't know enough about him to compare him to Taysom Hill, that I can't compare him to Taysom Hill, is you don't usually see 6'4", 6'5" guys who play in that slash type of role. And Taysom Hill's compact nature, he's put together, he's thick, he's powerful, reduces injuries because there's less body area to hit. I don't know if you're going to see a 6'4", 6'5" guy be a Taysom Hill type player.
Yeah, that's the main difference right there. And Taysom is built like a dang fullback too, or a tight end. And speaking of tight ends, they go small school, Lenore-Ryan, and get Adam Troutman at tight end. And they obviously had him ranked pretty high because they moved up to get him. And that's just another case. The Saints, they have Jared Cook, but Jared Cook's 33 years old. You're getting a young guy. You have somebody waiting in the wings, Shanle.
Preparing for the future. And when you look at, a lot of teams had a ton of draft picks and the Saints didn't. Well, I think that's a good thing because the Saints are all in this year. They don't have a whole lot of holes they have to fill where they have to have, like the Dolphins, 13 picks and hope that 9 of them pan out. Their team is put together. They're looking for a few more quality players to prepare for the future, and they got another one in the tight end. And you looked at his records. He set a ton of records at Dayton. Was flexed out some, versatile, and people are going to be surprised at his 40 time. I think they said he ended up running a 4.8 40, which isn't great. But I played with a guy, Jason Witten, who was a 4.8 40 guy, and he found a way to get open all the time. And when I watched those highlights of him that they were showing on the draft, he reminded me a lot of Jason Witten. Just the way he looked, his body type, the way he was running routes. He had nice wiggle in his head and shoulders at the top of the routes to get separation. So maybe there was a little bit of comparison there with Jeff Ireland and Sean Payton, who were with Jason Witten with the Cowboys.
I meant to say Dayton. I said Lenore-Ryan. I got too many of these small schools in my head after watching these quarantine draft coverage. I've never learned more about the draft in a long time than this year because we're inside more. I consumed everything. I mean, I feel like, except I botched the college there, but I feel like I learned more about the draft. And speaking of the draft coverage, there were so many questions on it's not in Las Vegas. The prospects aren't going to be there. You have all these Zoom feeds. You have all these in-house cams. I thought the draft coverage was exceptional. I thought it was unbelievably great. But the only weak link was the guy who should have made it easy, was the captain of the ship, Roger Goodell, botching names, botching dates on when Vegas is going to get the draft again. And I don't know if he was hitting the liquor cabinet in the later rounds. He had to sit down. He's like slumping in his chair. He's changing clothes. I don't know if he spilled like Crown on his sweater. What was going on with Goodell, Shanle? What the heck was that?
It was almost cringeworthy. I mean, finally this guy has to earn a little bit of his $40 million, and he looks pathetic doing it. Like, just disinterested, botching guys' names, doesn't know whether to stand or sit. Stop talking to the TV fans, Roger. You're not personable. Stop talking to the TV fans. Just let them cheer for their team. Announce the kid's name right. Get a pronunciation guide. But he was the definite weak link of this NFL draft, and he gets so easy to throw stones at because of everything we've been through with the whole Bounty Gate thing and how he botches all these other player punishment issues. But man, that was hard to watch.
It really was. And when you're the leader of the league and kind of the CEO of the NFL, and when you come off that way during a time where they really need you to bring your A game, they need you to bring your A game every time, the money you're making, but especially this time around, it's a sensitive matter, even having the draft, even though I agree with it. I'm glad it was business as usual. I will say this, when he's doing that and everybody else is doing their job and he's not doing his, I thought that was pretty weak. But speaking of the experience, and it was different. It was a one-of-a-kind draft. Sean Payton, when talking to ESPN, thought, the draft that we saw this time around might be, in a lot of ways, a similar draft moving forward. Here's what he had to say.
I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe some adjustments made because I think the fan loves to see a little bit more of the interaction with each of these draft picks in their houses rather than, in some setting maybe where they're all in their suits. And I just think it's been interesting.
Okay, Shanle, if you were like a Joe Burrow, and I know Joe Burrow's a family guy, you're a family guy, and let's say you're a big prospect like a Trevor Lawrence next year, and you're watching this draft, do you want to be, and it's okay, and there's no wrong answer here, but if you were like a top 5 pick or a top 10 pick or whatever, would you want to go to New York and kind of soak it in, or would you want to be like a Baker Mayfield, do it at home with a big party with the fam, or Jameis Winston, frankly, set the trend being one of the first overall picks to watch it from home because he promised his grandmother that he would be with her, which was admirable. There's no wrong answer, but which would you prefer?
My preference would be to go experience the draft. I think that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and forever, when they show these former or past years number 1 overall picks and they show them walking out on the stage, putting the hat on, holding the jersey up, all the flashlight or the cameras going off, that's a special moment. And some guys, they want to spend it at home with their family. I get it. But you're going to have all those years going back showing the number 1 overall picks, and then you're going to have poor Joe Burrow sitting in his living room in a T-shirt doing it over a Zoom video chat. So I think I feel for the kids the most. I'm sure coaches like sitting at home. They like just doing it via computer, and they would prefer it that way. But the kids, it was a different experience for them, and I feel for them because they'll never get a chance to redo it again.
Yeah, Sean Payton's son Connor was on his phone during the draft, and I was thinking, is that Sean Payton circa like 2006 sitting next to Sean Payton?
He looked just like him.
It was unbelievable. I'm torn because I think it'd be fun to be with your family. It'd be fun to have all the cameras there and kind of soak it in. But, yeah, you could also take your family and have the whole get-up in New York as well. So there's no wrong answer, but that'd be a tough decision. I'd have to think about that one. Speaking of tough decisions, Justin, you know what time it is. Yeah, that last question would have been a good more likely, but it is more likely. It's our 3 hypotheticals, and we bring back our great producer, Justin Thomas. Shanle gets to follow Justin Thomas, which is always a nice position because you don't know the questions, and I throw them at Justin first. I kind of like these questions, guys. Sometimes I tweak them a little bit, but I had these beforehand. I'm sticking to them. So here's our first more likely. We go back to the Saints quarterback position. Okay, if you have to bet your home, on this, okay? This is why it's a hypothetical. Drew Brees has a great year, and he goes out in the blaze of glory, and the Saints are searching for a quarterback in 2021, baby. Who will be the Saints quarterback in 2021? Will it be Taysom Hill? Will it be Jameis Winston? Or will it be somebody else? Justin Thomas, more likely.
I really do think it's going to be somebody else. I think Jameis is going to be here for 1 year. I don't see a situation like Teddy Bridgewater happening where he decides to stay for a second year. I think he'll just take a year off, get interest after this year from other teams, go start somewhere else. And I just do not see Taysom Hill being the starter going forward. I know Sean Payton keeps raving about him. I just don't. I haven't seen anything yet to suggest that that really is the case. So I'm going to go with someone else. I don't know if it's going to be via draft or trade, but I think those other two candidates won't be playing or won't be starting, I should say.
ESPN, are you listening? Because we have our own Mel Kiper. Justin Thomas is the most improved analyst of any podcast in the country right now. We have a rising star in the Been There, Done That podcast, Justin Thomas. That was good stuff, my friend. Shanle, you got to sell your home in Dallas. Not sell it, but you have to bet your home. Okay, you bet your home. If you win, you get another home, I guess. But you bet your house on the Saints quarterback if Breeze is not there in 2021. Is it Taysom Hill? Is it famous Jameis? Or is it somebody else?
I think I'm going to say Jameis Winston. I think Jameis. What the Saints did with Taysom Hill by signing him to a 2-year deal is they alleviated this very question right here. Because if Drew retires, you have Taysom Hill with a 1-year deal left at this point next year. And if you can't sign Jameis, say Jameis comes in and plays a few games and plays well, or he really impresses the team and his agent knows that, and he wants $20 million a year like Teddy Bridgewater, the Saints put themselves in a position where Taysom Hill is, again, the third option, just like with Teddy Bridgewater. They played it safe by locking him up. But I think Jameis Winston is going to come in. He's a former number 1 overall pick, and the Saints are going to believe in him enough to give him maybe a 2 or 3 year deal as a starting quarterback for the Saints.
You know what's great about sports is we have no idea what's going to happen. Who would have ever thought a year ago when we were doing this podcast, if somebody would have said, guys, a year from now, Joe Burrow is going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. And a year from now, you may think Jameis Winston might be your starting quarterback. I mean, that would be crazy.
It is crazy. And looking at next year's draft, if you're a team in the NFL, how hard are these teams that have no chance going to tank for Trevor Lawrence? That is a serious question. You have a generational talent. You have no chance at winning the NFL. Is there going to be a true tank job in the NFL this year?
Yeah, well, it won't be the Dolphins because they have Tua, so you can take them out of the running. But
maybe the Patriots. Maybe Belichick. He's going all in on the tank.
I'm just tanking. Me and my dog in my dining room tanking. The hell was that, by the way? Belichick's one of those guys that it's a classic case, and you've seen this from a player perspective, and I'll see it from a media perspective. Like, I'd love to have a beer with a lot of these guys because they're so different than the way they are as a coach or in front of the media. And Belichick, to me, probably isn't as much as like a Sean Payton or something, but a lot of these coaches, their personality is a lot different than what it appears. All right, more likely number 2. Let's go to the draft. LSU, boy, tying Ohio State. 14 players selected, but stick it to Bama again with an SEC record 14 players, and they do it by having guys like long snapper Blake Ferguson getting picked up. Everybody's picked up for the LSU Tigers. We're going to take Joe Burrow out of the equation. I know this is kind of crazy, but this is a crazy segment. Of these 4 players from LSU, of the 14 players they had selected, who's going to have the better pro career? Kayvon Chason, Justin Jefferson, Patrick Queen, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Chason, Jefferson, Queen, or Edwards-Helaire? Of course, we're taking Joe Burrow out of the mix to make it harder.
Right. I'm going to take Justin Jefferson off the table. I think he's good, but I don't know how much of that was Burrow versus how much of it was purely his talent. It starts getting interesting. I like the linebackers, both Queen and Chason. I think Chason could be really good. I have to say, though, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire went to the most perfect team.
Oh, yeah.
The Chiefs. And with Andy Reid and how talented he is on offense, another offensive genius, I really could see Clyde Edwards-Helaire just blowing up this year and having a really good career. So it's hard, man. I almost think you could just throw a dart and wherever it lands, you'd be correct. But part of me, I don't know. I'm going to go with my heart. I think it's Helaire. I think he could have a great career.
Yeah, before we get to Shanle, though, I mean, LSU 14 players is impressive, but man, this draft, you can say what you want about Urban Meyer, but you look at the Saints roster and you look at all the Ohio State guys. I mean, the top 3 picks. I mean, Burrow was recruited by Urban Meyer. The first 3 picks in the draft were recruited by Urban Meyer. I mean, Shanle, that Urban Meyer thing is unbelievable. That trend.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping the trend for Joe is, have any of Urban Meyer's quarterbacks been good in the NFL? That's the thing that I've always looked at is Urban has not had a good.
Alex Smith was okay.
Again, has any of his quarterbacks been good? Alex Smith played one great game against us, unfortunately, in 2012 divisional playoff game, but he's a number 1 overall pick. You got to be something better than that. He resurrected his career, but I haven't seen a franchise quarterback coming out of an Urban Meyer. That's what concerns me.
Tim Tebow?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Minor league baseball.
Oh, my goodness. What about these LSU guys? Which one do you see having the best career?
I love Justin's pick with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He is a great fit in the Kansas City offense, and he couldn't have went to a better team outside of the Saints to take advantage of his skill set. But when I look at the other players, I'm with Justin on Justin Jefferson as well. I think Joe made him maybe better than his draft pick at number 22. He goes to Minnesota. Laquan Treadwell, who was a freak athlete and a really good college player, he's not even there anymore. He was a former number 1 overall pick. I worry about Kirk Cousins. So I'm going to take Justin off the board. Patrick Queen went to the Ravens, which is, if you can't play linebacker for the Ravens, you probably can't play. For some reason, they get the most out of their linebackers. Yeah. So it's a great situation for him. But I'm going to go with Caleb Von Chason. He went to Jacksonville, which was not a great franchise, I know. But he is not dependent on anybody else for him to be a dominant player. Clyde needs to be in the offense to get the ball. There's a lot of other talented players that are going to get the ball before him. Justin Jefferson needs Kirk Cousins to be primetime Kirk to get the ball to him. I think Patrick can be a good player. He's a little undersized, but I'm going to go with Chason because when you line up on the edge, it's you versus the tackle. It's you versus the chip tight end. It's you one-on-one a lot of times. Every single play, you have a chance to make a play, especially if they come your way. They're either running your way or they're running the opposite way. So I think Chason, based on his size and speed, he has the best upside to have the best career out of those 4.
Yeah, he's a unique player in a lot of ways, Chason. But I'm going to go to Edwards-Helaire just because I feel like, just like Chason in a lot of ways, I think his best football is in front of him. He's kind of a late bloomer at LSU. But to go and be productive in the NFL, you have to have a good fit. And to go to Andy Reid and Mahomes, to be what they needed, it was missing. Kind of like Emmanuel Sanders in New Orleans, it was missing to have a Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So his story is great too, so I'm kind of rooting for him. So there's so many ways to go with that question. All right, this one's going to be kind of crazy, guys. Usually I give you that softball at the end, but I'm going to throw it hard. We're bringing the heat. More likely number 3 right here. Can we all agree, just a quick yes or no, that we love the Last Dance documentaries with docuseries, I should call it, with Michael Jordan and the Bulls? Justin?
Oh, it's been excellent.
Shanle, you love it, right?
I love it. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, here's a question. It might be an easy one, but I'm just going to throw it out there. I think I have a buddy of mine, he's one of my best friends. He's a Jordan guy, and his son was a great high school basketball player, and he's like, Dad, LeBron's the best. I think the generation today is being reminded about how great Jordan was. Maybe they forgot. And I've heard even people in the media, I guess they're younger, well, I didn't realize the Bulls were so bad when Jordan was drafted. Really? You don't remember? I mean, the Bulls were terrible when Jordan was drafted. And by the way, the Cavs were bad when LeBron was picked up too. I give LeBron a lot of credit, but my question is more likely, is Jordan the best athlete our country has ever had? And if not, who is? How about that?
Athlete
just
overall,
best athlete.
Okay.
Just best athlete we've ever seen in this country.
Yeah. Well, that's tough.
I didn't give you much time to think about that.
No, you didn't.
The key word is athlete in that question.
Yeah. I mean, if you would have said basketball player, I would have said hell yeah. But
all right, Shanle always corrects me, and he's right. And he can't do this on TV because we have time limits, but on a podcast he can pick me apart, which he should. Okay, so I'm gonna change it. How about this? The most impactful athlete we've ever had. Is that better?
Oh yeah. That narrows it down and makes it a very easy answer.
because you're right. You can say Deion Sanders is a better athlete.
Yeah, there you go.
You could say Bo Jackson is a better athlete than Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I would have went with Bo. That was going to be my answer as the best athlete.
Right. Shanle always keeps me honest, and I appreciate that.
You know what? I think your change it does make it easier. And I'm just going to go from my perspective. I remember in the 90s, I was around, especially when they were winning all those championships. I was about 13 to 16 in that range. And I didn't follow basketball. I pretty much just followed football. And still, wherever I went, everywhere you would go, it was Michael Jordan, 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 Jordan. I mean, I don't ever remember one player being talked about and loved as much as him, even with LeBron. And he's talented, but watching this documentary, I just remember, God, he is so talented. Michael Jordan, that is. I think probably he has to be one of the most impactful, especially for what he did. I mean, like you said, Mike, the Bulls were nothing. He came in, and then within the first year he came in, they were in playoff hunt. And I mean, a couple years later, they're going on this crazy streak. So I think from my perspective, obviously I'm not as old as y'all two, so I don't have other history to follow on. But from what I remember, yeah, I would probably say so.
Oh, that was good stuff. I like the part in the first one when they had no business making the playoffs, and Jordan could only play like 7 minutes a game, and they still made the playoffs, and in large part because of him and John Paxson's shot at the end of that one game. But Shanle, if you talk about most impactful athletes, and you're a person who played a decade in the NFL, or you've been around some great athletes, you've been a sports fan your whole life. Is Michael Jordan, though, the most impactful athlete? And I think the reason I asked that question in a lot of ways is because the impact that this series has made. And I know it's probably a bigger impact because of the times that we're in, but I think it's also a reminder of the impact that Jordan had on all of us.
Yeah, when you throw the word impactful in there, there's no doubt. I mean, there is no doubt he is the most impactful athlete we've ever seen. When you look at the Jordan brand still going strong, and all these kids wearing Jordan, and people still out on the basketball court shooting fadeaways, and the previous question when you asked about athlete, LeBron James may be more athletic because he's 6'8", 250. He's like a freight train. He could go play tight end in the NFL. But when you look at Jordan, I forgot, after watching this series, I forgot how graceful he was. I mean, it was like poetry in motion. Nothing looked hard. Everybody else looked like they were working hard, and he was out there and it looked easy. I think that's a sign of a great athlete. Then you look at how he made all the guys around him better. I played with a guy like that in Drew Brees. You walk in the locker room and he's all about winning. He's going to grind. He's going to hold people accountable. And when guys are very talented and all they care about is winning, and they're addicted to the competitive nature of the sport, it's hard not to respect them. And just the impact he's had, and he will have generation after generation. Look what he's done for Nike. Look what he's done for Gatorade. Look at all these different things he's tied to and will always be tied to. So I love this docuseries because it gives, like Justin said, the youth of today have no idea. Because I train guys, talk to guys at pre-combine, who's the best basketball player. All they want to talk about is LeBron. But LeBron, compared to Jordan, these young guys are seeing the same thing I try to tell them. The mental softening of our generation today is caused by guys like LeBron. LeBron's always looking for validation on Instagram, doing the whole stupid Taco Tuesday thing. Like, dude, you are the greatest basketball player in the world. Why do you need social media validation every single day? And I think that's why Michael Jordan has never latched on to LeBron or given him the credit he deserves. You never hear Michael talk about him. Michael finally gave Kobe some credit in the past few years, but I think it drives Michael crazy that LeBron to him is mentally not where he was when he played the game.
Okay, we have social distancing, but Shanle, you need to trademark this quickly. Mental softening. The mental softening of our society. I love that. Yeah, you know what? The thing about Jordan, too, is I think he doesn't give credit to guys for the reasons you just said, but I think it also, the reason he was great, and you see this in Breeze, too. I remember, was it Garrett Grayson when they drafted him? We asked about him at the Greenbrier. He wanted no part of Garrett Grayson. They want to smother everybody. And you know what? There's a part of Jordan that still hates that he can't play. Don't you think? He hates that he can't play, even to this day.
Yeah, there's no question. And I'm sure he would love to play against LeBron. And I don't know if anybody saw on social media, was it a year ago or so, he was on vacation somewhere and Brady was there and he was playing a pickup game basketball with a bunch of guys and Tom Brady was out there just standing outside the three-point line. And Jordan's burying jump shots. He's looking a little overweight, but he's still talking trash to the poor guy who came off the beach to play him in a one-on-one basketball game. I mean, talk about how awesome would it be, Mike, if you were on vacation, you're walking along the beach and somebody says, you want to play a pickup game basketball game? We got Tom Brady and Michael Jordan over here ready to play some basketball. So it's just competitive. He's addicted to being competitive.
Yeah, it's what makes him great, and there's no doubt about it. And you even see him at these CEO camps that he runs. He'll be talking smack to CEOs or even kids. He'll be challenging kids at some of these camps. It's all in good fun, but man, Michael Jordan didn't mess around. Here's why I think he's the most impactful. I was thinking about one guy that came close, I think, is Tiger Woods. And Tiger Woods had a huge impact on so many people, and in a sport where not only people of his color didn't make a mark because they were held back for so many years, he brought so many fans into the PGA, but he was so dominant for so long. But I still don't think he ranks with Michael Jordan. But even when you look at the other sports, Tom Brady's considered the best, Joe Montana, but it's not the same as Michael Jordan. I mean, you look at baseball, you'd probably have to go back to Babe Ruth. I mean, there have been a lot of great baseball players, but nobody like Michael Jordan. In the NBA, you've had the Kobes, you've had LeBron, but Shanle, when I list all these names, even the Tiger Woods, some of these names somewhat come close in our history, but not as close as Jordan.
Yeah. Well, when you look at what he's done outside of the sport he played, nobody will come close to him. But I'd be willing to make the argument, Mike, that what Tom Brady has done so far in his career and has done in his career is more impressive than what Michael Jordan did with winning 6 championships. Because when you look at football versus basketball, to win 6 championships, there's no best of 7 series. So Michael Jordan, I don't remember what his record would have been. It wouldn't be 6-0 in finals if it was a win or go home. Tom Brady, every single time he played a football game in the playoffs, it was win or go home. So for him to win 6 championships with a do or die, you get one chance, there's no best of 7, to me is more impressive than what Jordan did with his 6 championships.
Okay, so we'll put a bow on it with this. If Tom Brady wins a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is he the most impactful guy over Jordan?
Still no. Still not the most impactful. Wow. Because when I take the word impactful, Mike, I'm looking at what you did in your sport on the field, but it's also like a 50-50 equation, what you did off the field. Do people across the country know who you are? Can they identify with your Jumpman logo? There's no logo for Tom Brady. I mean, basketball players, just their vision, they don't have a helmet on. They're more personable, I think, because of that. It's not viewed as a gladiator sport. And I don't think Tom Brady will ever be able to catch up to the Jordan brand as far as what he's done in the clothing line.
Interesting. I never know what you're going to say in a lot of these subjects, but when you talk about, you go in the locker room and you feel it with Drew Brees, the next podcast, I want to ask you about that. Maybe some examples of that. Take us into the locker room and how that felt, because I think it's a tangible thing. It's maybe a look. It's maybe something quick that he says, or more importantly, something that he does, either on the practice field, staying late, or something that he does. So I'd like to ask you more about that. It's kind of a tease for future podcasts.
Yeah, it's really, we can elaborate more on it, but it really comes down to it's hope. You either have hope or despair, and some guys bring hope to the locker room that you have a chance to win. And I don't know if people watched the draft, but Coach Payton got on. He was on those little calls, and they asked him about Tom Brady. What scares him the most about Tom Brady? And Coach Payton's response was the energy that he's going to bring to that locker room. They're all going to believe they can win every single Sunday, and that's dangerous. So he gets it. And those type of players bring that hope to a locker room.
And nobody knows the mental aspect of galvanizing a team more than Sean Payton, because he's done it repeatedly since back in 2006, the second longest tenured head coach in the NFL. Well, man, we touched them all on this podcast. Justin, if they want to reach us on Twitter, what is our Twitter handle?
@Dundad Podcast.
And we need to do a better job, and it's my fault. We all got consumed by the draft, but we're going to put some more polls up there to get you energized. We're also going to put that clip of Shanle and I talking about Jameis Winston, just a snippet of why you need to listen to our podcast. We know what we're talking about. Shanle gives you the insight. We make the bold predictions. March 17th, we go back to that date, and we talked about, actually 19th, but it's still over a month ago, we talked about Jameis Winston, and we talked about Drew Brees being a broadcaster at the Pro Bowl. So we've been ahead of the curve on a lot of these storylines, and we'll continue to do so with great guests and great perspective. You can catch us on all the platforms: iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher, Google. Please subscribe, give us a good rating, and let us know what you'd like to hear, either from a guest or maybe some topics for Scott Shanle. But we appreciate you listening to our Been There, Done That podcast. For our great producer, Justin Thomas, and my outstanding partner, Scott Shanle, I'm Mike Nabors, and we'll talk to you next time.